Hey writers, Lee Jessup here, career coach for emerging and professional screenwriters. It turns out that we're having a really exciting week in the feature space here in the industry. Just a couple days ago, I recorded a video about a spec sale of a screenplay titled Renegotiate by Mark Townend that sold for mid six figures to Lionsgate and a bidding war. Well, just a couple days later, we now have news of a huge pitch sale of a movie by the name of Foster the Snowman, not a screenplay, but rather a pitch that sold to Apple in a three-way bidding war. That is a family slash holiday movie described as a little bit Paddington, a little bit It's a Wonderful Life, humor of Elf, something that Apple is clearly hoping will be a big holiday movie for them, which naturally, first of all, made me celebrate because always good to be in an active marketplace and to see our industry thriving and busy. And secondly, gave me the idea, case study. Let's look at the two projects side by side, Renegotiate alongside Foster the Snowman, one being a spec sale, the other being a pitch sale, and talk about how these played out. What are we getting from them? What do we know from this? So a spec screenplay, for those of you who have not watched my channel before or not familiar with the term, is a screenplay that is written speculatively. So it's not written to order. It's not written for a particular producer who is involved in it, but rather the writer sits, toils, works, writes the screenplay, and then the screenplay goes out to market. A pitch is a long, elaborate pitch that walks through the listener, usually studio buyer or executive, through every step and every building block of a movie, but the screenplay itself was never written. So it's only developed for a pitch environment rather than on the page. Renegotiate is an action thriller that is described as source code meets phone booth, was written by a writer who has had significant industry success. So he is unproduced, but has sold a movie to Warner Brothers, has been on the blacklist a number of times, has a number of projects that are set up with big name industry companies, just had a movie go into production that I believe, if I'm reading between the lines properly, was an assignment rather than original, has been on the blacklist a number of times, but clearly a writer that has been out there working, that I'm sure had a fan base who was ready and willing to look at his work when the material was sent out. That material went out, from what we know, in the beginning of April, went out to a slew of producers and buyers, and ultimately 3 players came to the table. We're told that Lionsgate won the bidding war on a strong financial offer with a short clock. So they put an expiration date on the offer, and the script ended up selling for mid 6 figures against 7. What that means is the writer up front received, or the script sold for somewhere in the mid 6 figures, with a bonus or purchase fee added on should the movie go into production. We're told that up to 20 companies were reading this when you take out a feature. A feature can be made many different ways, unlike television that is more specific that way. So we are told that at least 20 companies were reading, which means that it probably went out to more than 30 companies where maybe there were competing projects that made producers not want to read, but ultimately set up with Cinemachine and Range to produce and sold to Lionsgate. On the other side of this little case study of ours, we have Foster the Snowman, written by a writing team. This is, as I mentioned, a holiday movie that went into a bidding war after being presented as a pitch to 12 different studios. So the writers tell it, according to the Deadline article that I will make sure to include here, that they did this old school. They went on 12 studio lots, production company lots, and did it in the room, pitched in the room, which is a whole performative thing. Now, in order to be able to get in the room, in order to pitch the thing, and have buyers want to engage with you, you have to have had some really kind of big, meaningful industry success, And it's not to say that the writer of Renegotiate wasn't able to do that. They chose to take that script out fully written on spec so that the entire story is laid out on the page. Here, we have the pitch going out. The writers involved in this project, one of them is an executive producer on the studio for Apple. Clearly, or Apple TV, or Apple TV Plus, Apple Plus, you know what I'm talking about. Clearly, there is pedigree and success here that opened the door to a lot of studios to take out this holiday movie or holiday movie pitch. Now, the hitches oftentimes with holiday movies is that a lot of studios develop this in-house. And that's why oftentimes it's difficult to get these read because everybody's developing something of their own. Well, in this scenario, the writers were able to get out to 12 meetings, the writers here being John O'Matt and Peter Huyak, whose last name I'm probably botching, so I will only have said it once and never again. Not out of love, but out of lack of love, but rather out of my own insecurity. Back to the point. Writers were able to take it out to 12 companies that ultimately brought 3 to the table wanting to purchase. Netflix, Amazon MGM. MGM is now owned by Amazon. When we say Amazon MGM, we're talking about the same company. And Apple all came to the table. Apple won the offer or won the bidding war. We are told that there might have been more money on the table, but ultimately Apple made a strong push for getting the movie kind of fast-tracked for holiday 2026, which is really exciting. So here we have these 2 different projects, the pitch having sold for $1.6 million against $3 million. And for the record, if we're talking about a movie the size of Elf, it is going to be well worth the spend. But it's interesting to see a pitch go out from writers that are further established, that were able to get this pitch in the room to 12 potential buyers, versus the spec screenplay that our other writer was able to get out for Renegotiate that was fully written. This is a choice that the writer and representation will make together. What do we take out on pitch? What do we take out on spec? And get it out there, get it sold, and hopefully now on to the next step to get it made. Most importantly, what this is telling us is that our industry is active, vibrant, busy, which is very exciting. So I encourage you all to continue writing, continue working on your project. I will say, don't start developing your pitch just yet if you don't have a strong industry fan base, because it's harder to get pitches out, if not impossible, if you don't have that fan base of people that are already eager to read from you. Keep developing on specs, but as we can see, spec screenplays can still go quite far, and a great rep will certainly be of great help to a writer that has a very strong track record, which builds one success at a time. All right, I hope you guys found this all too long video useful. If you did, kindly do subscribe, and with the pace this industry is going, there'll be more coming at you soon. Bye.